We are ready to go. Sir, if you want to call a meeting to order.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the North Branford Planning and Zoning Thursday, January 6, 2022 meeting. Order 6:34 p.m. In attendance is regular members Nowak, Sienna, and Mace, and I'm acting chair Calvin. The first order of business will be the minutes of the meeting from November 18th. You all have a copy of those? We have so Trish, Ron, and I. So Trish, Ron, I'll give you a couple minutes to look over the minutes. You want to just get there when you're done? You can Trish, maybe just speak up because I can't see it.
Yeah, you're going to unmute yourself at some point. She's muted. There's you unmuted. Okay, there we go.
I'm unmuted. I'm good with the meeting minutes. Just, I guess, let me know when Rob is.
Here and I'll sign it after.
Mm-hmm.
Did you call a roll call? Because I couldn't, you're kind of going in and out with me.
Yes. Nope. Regular members, Sienna, Mace, and acting chair Galden.
Did you say Dulac?
No.
Oh, I was going to say, all right.
All right. I can sit closer to that.
Yeah, I can't really move this.
Yeah. Again, agility, right? Flexibility, agility, whatever you want to call it. Good, Ron? Okay. A motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make the motion. So move.
Second? Oh, yes, it does. I forgot, Robert. So abstain. Yep.
Who seconded that?
Sienna.
Sienna, because
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes 3-0 with one abstention from Noah. Okay. So next order of business under 3 is the public hearing. Possible action. Application 2021-18, 108 Old Post Road, R40 zone, subdivision of parcel 6 residential lot. Sunset Ridge Estates, including open space, owner 108 Old Post Road, LLC. Applicant Brian Penico, I think. Penico Design. Seated for this public hearing tonight are regular members Nowak, Sienna, Mace, and Galdenzi. And if I could have someone read the legal notice into the record for us, that'd be great.
Legal notice, North Branford Public Planning and Zoning Commission. Notice hereby given from the North Branford Planning and Zoning Commission will hold an in-person public hearing at 6:30 p.m. pursuant to that on Thursday, January 6, 2022, at the North Branford Town Hall, Council Chambers, 909 Boston Road, North Branford, Connecticut. Consider the following: A, application number 2021-18, 108 Old Post Road, proposed 6-lot residential subdivision, meaning Sunset Ridge Estates, owner 108 Old Post Road, LLC, applicant Brian Penico, Penico Design. At this hearing, all interested parties may appear and be heard, and written communication will be received. Copies of proposal are on file for public inspection in the Town Hall Planning and Zoning Department. William Galdendi, Vice Chairman.
Okay, thank you. So just quickly for the record, how we'll run the public, all public hearings. We'll have the applicant, come up and make his presentation. The commission may have questions. At that point, it's only the commission asking questions. Once we're satisfied to a point, we'll then open up, I'll formally announce we're opening up to the public. And just two forms, raise your hand, come up, state your name and address, and then make your comment questions at that point. And then we'll have, the applicant will be taking notes, and then once we have all public comments, then we'll have the applicant answer any questions or things that come up at that point.
So the first one is 9.28 parcel people lot. They used to have a house in that garage on outbuilding 1.2 farming. The town is used by the road, left by residential people and houses that are up to the road. South by residential people and houses facing north. Cycle wall, basically from the presentation from here, at this point, the site, everything comes to the east, and inward, then comes to the west.
Okay, since it's going to be hard to see on the screen there, if we, Bill, you want to just sort of point out what he's showing on the screen there so we can just show it for people at home? Or maybe not at home, but maybe the people in the audience that we're looking at.
The high point is this way, is that what you said?
Further to the
Further
east.
to that's right, for that further, go right.
Can you, excuse me, can you get closer to the mic? Because I can hardly hear him.
That's not going to, you're going to have to move. Okay, we're having you move closer. This should help.
Okay.
Can you hear him now? Just speak up again, please.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah, perfect. Thank you.
All right. So that's the high point, and so everything from that point either flows east toward Old Post Road or west to the west. So the proposal is for a 6-lot subdivision. This is a private road off of Old Post Road. It is going to be private well and septic systems. There's a small portion of open space that is directly adjacent to Old Post Road. That will be an ownership of the homeowners association, simply because there's no other open space surrounding this parcel, so it wouldn't be contiguous to anything. And then the entire western portion behind Lot 4, which is the lot furthest to the west there. Yep. So everything behind that is all where the wetlands are in the upland review area. That will all be a conservation easement. So no tree clearing, no. Correct. Yep. So yeah. So that all that remaining will be in conservation. Once again, since there isn't any open space surrounding that this could be adjacent to, we felt putting it in the conservation easement would be best possible use for it. So that restricts development. Nothing can be built. It will stay trees, protect the wetlands, and everything else. So this road, we are providing street lights, street trees along this road. All of the houses have their own private driveways off of this road. And there is storm drainage within the western portion. So the western portion from that high point moving down has catch basins, and there is a large detention basin to the south of the house on Lot 4. Correct. Yep. And that collects all the storm water and stores it so that we are moving zero increase in runoff.
Private road, homeowners association.
Correct. So the town is not responsible for any infrastructure. I know that was a concern and a comment previously. So the town is not responsible for any infrastructure or maintenance of any of these spaces. That will all be the responsibility of the homeowners association. So at this time, we have addressed all of staff comments. I believe
we have also received approval from East Shore Health for the septic system well designs. We have met all the recommendations of the Regional Water Authority and wetland approval on December 8th of last year. If there's any questions from the commission, I'm happy to answer those.
I have one on subject. When we had, in the regulations, we had something about the roof roads, the distance.
There's a 1,000-foot limit to cul-de-sacs. So cul-de-sacs cannot be more than 1,000 feet in length. Okay?
So what we've done historically, Commission, I don't know, in the wetlands, because sometimes you get encroachment, we talk about like bouldering or placards and just.
So we did discuss that with wetlands, and they requested there is a standard placard. We're figuring out what the design is and where to get those and how to get those, and then those will be installed along that conservation easement.
We had one left. I ordered 100 more.
Nice standard one.
So we have them hopefully coming in, and I'll be able to hand them enough to get up a placard. In the future, the goal will be to have the applicant purchase them with basically replacement costs so that we can get those, replaced. They're about $5 a placard, honestly. So, and they're very nice. I mean, they're discs that would hold with failed trees or whatever else. So yeah, there was one left. I've arranged to order more, and the applicant has agreed that he will put them up.
I have a question.
Anyway, let's
We're gonna have to get real creative here. But maybe we'll let Trish go. I'm sorry. No. Trish, you move on.
Okay, Trish, why don't we start with you?
All right, the first thought that popped in my head was the roadway and the cul-de-sac is big enough for a fire truck to get in and turn around?
We sent this out to the fire marshal and fire chief for comments. They have not returned they have not commented.
Okay, we have to wait for those. Okay.
Excuse me, Trish, they have just not sent a comment, or they just have no comment?
They've been given several months. They have sent no comments. I don't know what that means at this point beyond that they have sent no comments.
That's a good question, what Trish asks. I assume you met the road standard, obviously. So it's satisfied with the fire department, but we usually have them saying something.
Yeah, and that came up in the previous discussion. Obviously, everything that was looked at for something else previously. I did actually look at that. We use a program called auto turns. So I did take a fire truck and we can make the turns in and out of the property.
Yeah. There's another concern for typically developments have like a storage tank for water for the house fire. I don't know if that's a new rule. I know my development has it with the underground storage tank at the head of the facility. Was there any discussion with the fire department?
There was no discussion as
Yeah, it did come up on the Red Barn property.
there is also a hydrant about 600 feet south of it.
And not to interrupt here, because we are doing this through Zoom and it's being taped, and we don't have visual, I'm going to ask you give your name before you speak, just so that we can get it on the record who is speaking on a particular occasion. Okay?
This is Gil Benzie speaking. So it's a good. I mean, historically, we've always had their comments, even if they're boilerplate comments. I have no issue with it. So it is.
We can make it conditional in any additional requirements they have.
Trish Wright is a good point, and I totally appreciate that you made the swing, but it'd be nice for the fire department to say, you know, because sometimes they do find things that they want. That's sort of run, you know, benefit
Yeah, we
the
got a
state as well.
Brian Panico applicant. So I don't believe we've actually gotten any comments from police or fire, so we're more than happy, any changes, comments, questions to address, from the police or fire.
The Roberts and Ron's, I don't know, we have a fairly recent development that we have a cistern, and that came up, the old one, but I think they said the newer ones have, the concrete and have a lifespan. It's a good point. But that's the fire department's decision, not us. So we really need them to weigh in on that.
Well, again, you can
I
make,
agree with Bill 100. This is Tricia Mace. I agree with Bill 100%. Something needs to be in writing.
well, again, we can either, you have two choices. We can either keep the hearing open for a month while I try and get comments, or you can make it conditional on any requests that the fire department may request is from the applicant post hearing.
I don't want to talk about that now. We'll talk about it. Trish, anything else for now?
No, I'm a little leery of putting too many conditions on, if we were to proceed in the direction of an approval. I'm just always leery of putting too many conditions on. So I don't know if we'll talk about that later or now, but I'll put that out there now.
Let's talk about it now. It's out there. Yeah. Her comment was she's a little leery about putting all these conditions on, too many conditions on. So say we did vote on it, say we did vote on it, but then at the end of the night have too many conditions. She's leery about that. We probably want to have them resolved before in whole, so we're seeing it in whole, right? So we're voting on something complete and whole. So I appreciate that, but I mean, as long as it's just the fire department review and or yay or nay.
So, Bill, no, I got a listener comment I'd like to go through, if that's all right.
Yeah, do we want to just conclude this or?
Also, going to do the application.
No, I just meant the fire department. Yeah. I mean, we have a meeting in 2 weeks, right? So it's not a month.
It is in 2 weeks, and we can actually receive their comments post-close of the public hearing because they are staff. So if you even want to close the public hearing tonight and just get their comments post-hearing, we can do that as well.
So if they said they wanted a larger road and cisterns, we can consider that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You can consider it.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to receive more from the applicant at that point in time, though. So it's up to you how you want to handle that. But you're allowed to receive their comments post-close of hearing.
We'll discuss that when we get to that point.
So, I got a couple of comments about Noack. So, the road is about 850 feet long, right? So, we're only proposing about 10 trees, and if I understand from the subdivision regulations, every 50 feet, there's a tree, no longer than 50 feet. So, you're a little under, I believe, the number of trees required on the property. So, you need to look at that.
So we can definitely look at that. I think Brian Panico applicant. The big difference would be that would be a town road standard requirement. So since it's a private road and owned by a homeowners association, I don't know that it falls under that category. If that's something that the commission feels strongly about, we could certainly add and keep the same process for the number of trees. But
Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you have to build the road according to the town standards.
Well,
Relatively speaking, correct?
a private road in this particular case can be sufficiently, it needs to be to a standard that it is not going to be a safety hazard. It does not necessarily need to meet town requirements if it's not going to be a town road. Again, Victor did review it. He did have comments. Victor was not concerned about the width necessarily. He seemed to think it was okay. So on that one, I would say if the town is going to be responsible for it, the town doesn't necessarily need to worry quite so much about how wide you want the road to be. On the street trees issue, yes, I do believe it does need to meet that requirement. In fact, the motion I put together on this does specify per section 306, street trees of no less than 2 inches in caliber and deciduous species approved by the commission. Towards staff, be planted not less than 50 feet apart along both sides of the street, located in the front yards of all lots, and on a line approximately 5 feet from the street wall. So that's a requirement of the regulation, and I believe it would apply here as well. Okay.
I think that, I appreciate it. I think that's the whole point we talked about, that they have to wait. We can say all we want, but they're the experts. They're required.
I will seek further
Yeah.
comment from them at this point. They have not responded up until now.
We'll make a modification to that.
Robert?
Okay, continuing, one of the regulations requires under 222 to demonstrate past solar energy techniques. I don't know what that means as far as the commission, as far as the applicant demonstrating that those techniques have been met. I don't know what those techniques are. It says stated in his paperwork that it did need it, and I probably defer to Victor or Eric to make comments relative to that note.
Generally, the passive solar has to do with the fact that you need to demonstrate that the houses have access to basically southern-facing qualities so they can get as maximum amount of sunlight. In this particular case, since it runs literally east-west, everything has more or less the maximum exposure to the southern face. So I think that has been met under the circumstances.
Okay. Another comment is regarding sidewalks, the requirements of sidewalks. Does that apply under this private road designation?
It would not. If you believe sidewalks are important here, you certainly can request them. But at this point, because this is a private road, they're not mandatory.
So that goes along in addition to concrete curbing and the like, there's other requirements.
Yeah, there will be curbing on, as I understand it, on one side of the street, but not on the other, and that's largely because of the drainage situation that we're trying to get the maximum amount of sheet flow that's going to basically be absorbed into the grass rather than going into the storm sewer. So from the standpoint of keeping stuff out of storm sewer, which is a MS4 requirement, that having less curbing here would probably be beneficial to that regard.
Yeah, and if I may, so mainly, as the planner said, MS4, the big goal is to reduce impervious surface. So that's why we went with a road that we felt was both met safety, easy passage, but minimal, and just to keep a minimal impact from the actual appearance and the look of the development from Old Post Road, because I know that was a concern. And so, one side of a portion of the road is curved. We obviously allow water to flow off and into the detention basin area on the eastern side of the road, and then everything on the southern portion of that road flows directly into the street. So we're maximizing as much basic infiltration into the ground with that stormwater as possible, and that's just the general low-impact design strategy that's been adopted that most places are trying to incorporate.
Okay. Other comments? No, I see underground utilities. Are they going to be overhead or underground?
Those have to be underground for the regulation.
Yep.
Okay. Even though it's a private road.
Even though it's a private road, that has to be all underground.
I have a quick question.
Your comment, Eric, regarding
one
the
minute.
landscape.
Robert, just one thing. Do you have a comment to that, Chris?
I just had a question more out of curiosity. Who cleans or plows a private road? The homeowners association? They're all going to chip in and hire somebody?
Correct. So that'll be in the homeowner association in the documents. So when somebody buys a house, they're given the list. They're incorporated into the association. They understand their responsibility.
Oh, okay.
The association documents need to be reviewed by town council just to make sure that they do contain requirements of that in there. Because obviously if the association fails, then, the town is, I'm sure, going to be asked to pick up the tab, which we don't want. So the goal is to make the association documents robust enough. We think that there's enough money going in to cover these eventualities.
All right, Robert, continue. Thank you.
Proposed street name. The name, have we checked to make sure it's not consistent with the town family? That's one of the subdivision requirements.
It is not duplicative in the town.
The other comment along with that vein is the housing house number.
I have to assign those apparently, which is new for me, but I will pick those numbers out when we get to the point of approval. I've never had to do that before in my previous two positions, but apparently it goes along with the game planner here. So I'm going to give them pretty much straight numbers out of one side, even up the other, and do from there. But until we...
Did they give you another hat for that, or?
No, I didn't realize it was one of my responsibilities until I read the regulation and it said town planner picks out street numbers. So yeah, anyway, I have not done so. Once we get to the level of it's an approved subdivision and whatever number of lots it is, I will go through and pick out numbers. Again, my expectation is, one side of the street's going to be 246, the other one's going to be 135. I don't know why I would be fancy about it. There doesn't seem to be any reason to pick different numbers than that. So
I think to Trish's point, in many applications, to coordinate that with police and fire, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
If it comes in 3 XYZ, they know where to go.
absolutely.
Yeah, like if there's a similar sounding street somewhere in town, maybe choose numbers that are not similar to those. That's the only thing I could think of if it's in the ball's in your court on that.
Okay, I will check with the police and emergency services to see if they have any concerns about A, the street name, and B, the numbering system. And if so, we will make sure we pick numbers that don't conflict someplace else. Again, the goal is to keep it simple, but by the same token, obviously, you want to keep it safe. So the best, we will work out street numbering at the appropriate time. It's sort of premature to worry too much about street numbering, I think.
Along the same line, Eric, you were saying about a landscaping plan regarding buffering plants between the houses. I think that's important in the comment. Part of one of the regulations of the 326 of the subdivisions. So that's referred to some other regulations that I haven't seen.
Other plans for?
So we do show some non-deciduous, so some evergreen trees on some of those property lines directly between lot 4 and 5 along that property line. We show some. There are a couple there, so between 3 and 4, we were just pointing. We show a couple running along that driveway directly to the north of that. There's some additional trees we're showing between. Yep. Nope. Along that property line. Yep.
Bill, if you run your finger along the property line there between those two lots, diagonal. There we go. There it is. Along that line, there are 5 dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So we're showing some there as well. And then between this development and the neighboring development to the northeast, right there, there's that property. There's a pretty substantial row of arborvitae that run along there, so that is pretty well screened. And then we did add some additional evergreen screening between the first lot right there, yep, on that corner.
Down, there we go.
There's
arborvitae here.
To the down and basically along there, from there, right, all along that edge. There are some existing evergreen trees at the very beginning of the property to the north, that, at the request of neighbors' request, to be removed. They're relatively large, kind of, from what I've heard and understand, have caused some nuisance, in the past, so those we will be removing. I did have a conversation with that property owner. They said at this time they don't feel that anything needs to be planted in its place since that's all open space.
The last comment I have is regarding the entrance to the development. Right? First strip of property there is town property. Right? The street line.
Yeah, there's a portion between the existing pavement and what is their property. They will be responsible for paving that initially to get from the edge of their property to the town road.
So the developer's not responsible to do anything relative to the town road to mitigate drainage in front of the property entrance, even though he's contributing his water onto the town road?
Victor has been talking with the applicant regarding treatment of that water and also any water that might overflow or overtop the drainage or retention basin that is going to be in that open space. Because there are concerns that the water that is coming down from Lucia Lane there onto the road needs to be caught in some sort of system there. And the existing system may not be adequate to that. So if you read or if you review Victor's comments, he does indicate that he does want that that drainage addressed. I know he's talked to the applicant about the best way to handle that.
On Old Post Road?
Correct. So I've been discussing with Victor the options. He's been going back and forth with Public Works to figure out what the best way to handle that drainage is. So as far as the amount of stormwater coming from this property onto Old Post Road, as part of meeting the zero increase in runoff, we've actually looked at that. We are reducing the total amount of stormwater runoff that comes off of this site and goes to Old Post Road. But we have been in discussion with Victor, who's, like I said, been in discussion with Public Works on what the best possible option to kind of either put in structures or what we may need to do and what they feel is the best solution to do.
Have you noticed the groundwater that's coming from the neighboring property that comes across your driveway entrance property that it is?
So my understanding is that there is a footing drain pipe that just discharges directly out into Old Post Road, and that creates kind of a stream. We did go and dig test pits in the area of these basins. We reported all that information. I believe that the information is not on the plans. But what we did was we looked at that and looked at how big we can make and how deep we can make that basin without interfering with groundwater, and then made that basin kind of large as we can to try to collect as much of that as possible. So one of the comments, one of Victor's comments, which we said we could address, was kind of taking that large hill in front of the property out and trying to push that all kind of back and down, creating like swales, but some of that water and create some of the snow shelf over there as well.
Mr. Town Planner, can I ask a question, please?
Not yet. We're going to get to you in a minute. Okay. Right now, we're just dealing with commission questions.
Yeah, we haven't opened up for the public session yet, but.
Okay, that's what my question was, because this Zoom is very hard to follow. There is no maps. We can't see anything. So I'll wait till public comments. Thank you.
I have a question. So you mentioned how you're working with Victor and stuff. Has that been, have you included that in those agreements made part of the formal plan though? Because we're, saying we're getting ahead of ourselves, but I mean, if we, kind of Trish's point before, we're getting to the point of trying to take action on this, if this is yet another open.
I think where we were at with Victor was he was satisfied with the size of the pond. So the initial set, that a lot of this discussion was from the first set of plans. We made revisions, got those back, and haven't had and addressed all of those comments and concerns. And have not gotten, there haven't been any other comments or questions from any of these other departments. But like I said, the basin is sized so that there is excess storage from just this development. So that, for example, the roof leak, the pipe coming out of the neighboring property into the road. That excess kind of trickle of water that's constant flow, that would come down the road to where it now intersects our property and would end up probably in this basin as opposed to just kind of running.
Yeah. I guess before the procedural was, as long as it's been agreed and it's part of the official plan that submitted that
Yeah, so this
gonna
set of plans,
take action or not take action on tonight.
correct. So the latest
It
set
has
of
to be
plans
whole.
is all set.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's kind of my earlier point about we like to vote on things that are whole, not, it's,
Yes.
we have part of it, and we're waiting for this
No,
other part, and then we'll put the condition on this other part. It's like, we want everything kind of, we consider some things, but we can't, to Trish's earlier point, we can't have too many things outstanding.
Correct. Understood. But so, from what I've gathered and from all the information and what I've received, I believe that, Eric, your comments have been addressed. Engineering has been addressed. And like I had said, regional water was addressed. East Shore Health was addressed. Everybody's, yeah.
So they're part of your
Part of this official
documents?
set of documents.
Okay.
Good. Any more comments?
Just your name for the record, sir.
Yeah,
Question was, what are the sides of the lots? Folks online.
so I'll go through, just because obviously people online don't do this stuff either. So lot number 1 is 44,369 square feet. Lot number 2 is 40,190. 3 is 44,768. 4 is 93,146. 5 is 41,277. And 6 is 43,844. So all approximately the 1 acre, the R40 requirement, with the exception of lot 4, which has that large conservation area. But the area of lot 4, which is non-wetland, usable land, is 67,000, give or take 400 square feet. So all the lots meet that R40 designation.
Just on again, is there a need to do anything relative to the sedimentation pond on lot 4? I don't really have the contours or steps or anything like that as far as the owner of the lot also is the owner of the open space behind and the drainage pond, correct?
Correct. So while the drainage basin is on lot 4, it is encompassed by an easement, which is a maintenance and drainage easement. So all of the lots will have the right to drain into that basin. And then as part of the homeowners association documents, they will all be responsible for the maintenance of that basin as well. So even though it is on lot 4, the entire homeowners association will be responsible for the maintenance.
No. It's written right into their deed. So anybody buying has to be part of that association.
Yeah.
Well, so, no, I was just saying, so that's why the association is set up beforehand. Town staff's approved it. We're looking at what the overall costs down the road are. The biggest concern usually with road and stuff like this is road maintenance.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was Eric, I think it was the previous planner. His exact comment to me was, I do not want the private road to meet town standards, because if the private road meets town standards, it's one more leg for the homeowners association to go to the town standing on saying, incorporate this as a town road, in the future. So we, in the homeowners association documents, to make sure that, 10 years from now, that whole road can get repaved, there'll be enough funds in order to do that.
Anything else now? Chris, any further questions at this point?
I do, just because, I hear the discussion going back and forth about, victors and having discussions. So from this end, I hear there's been a lot of discussions. I don't know if in front of you guys right now, like, is there, I feel like we're used to, it says, Victor has additional concerns, which may entail further revisions. So I'm used to Victor, like, being there, or there being paper saying, here were the concerns, these are addressed, this is what's addressed, this is what's going to be addressed. Is there anything like that in our possession now, or not yet?
You have the December 22nd memo that Victor prepared that dealt with sort of the original level of concerns. The only concern that I am aware of that is still outstanding is how to finalize whatever drainage is coming off of this road onto Old Post Road. That's the only piece that, to my knowledge, is still being discussed between Victor and the applicant. Everything else, to my knowledge, has been addressed to Victor's satisfaction.
Okay, that's helpful.
And for the record, the conversation I had with Victor was prior to the set of revisions that's in front of us, and prior to the memo on December 22nd. It's my understanding that there are no additional questions and concerns. All of that has been met with this latest set of revisions.
Yeah, the memo I have is dated December 2/7, not 2/2. So, that's only a week ago. So that's why I'm like, how much could have been figured out in a week over the holidays? So that's why I kind of wanted it more spelled out for us and the public. Here were the concerns. This is what's addressed. This is what's outstanding. And it sounds like the only outstanding one is the detention basin, which is a huge one. But I just kind of wanted it more cleared up a little bit more.
And it's not even the detention basin per se, Trish. It's really
The runoff.
the runoff
Okay, my mistake.
If anything overtopped the basin, if anything came down Lucia onto the road, how would that be addressed? My understanding in talking to Victor is, and again, he's not here because he's got COVID, he is not concerned about the quantity of runoff coming off of this site particularly, but he does want to make sure that it is properly caught and set where it needs to go. And that is something that, again, I know he and the applicant have been discussing. The December 27th memo is my memo. And again, at this point, I think those comments have been raised this evening. So I think pretty much we're all there. Bob Novak, I think, raised a lot of what I had raised in my December 27th memo, and the applicant has indicated he will apply. So that seems to have been wrapped up.
Okay.
I think we're more or less negotiate with my memo of the 27th and with Victor's memo of the 22nd. So I don't know that there's any new memos that are out there. Again, I do need to follow up with police and fire, which owe us memos and have not given us memos.
Very helpful.
So has all the information from all these memos been put on the plan? The applicant says, and have you, Victor and you, have you seen
no,
the updated plan?
I have not seen any plans that reflect, for instance, the additional street trees that we talked about. There are requirements for additional trees between the lots potentially. Again, I would sort of propose a draft motion that just says shall follow the requirements of my memo of December 27th and do that. So no, the plans have not been updated since December 27th to reflect my comments. But again, those are relatively addressable comments. There's nothing in there that's a deal breaker. But again, that can be handled either by getting a revised set of plans now or by making it condition of approval.
That'll be part of the deliberation. Anything else, Trish, at this point?
No, not at this point. If everybody else, the commission's okay, we could open it up to public comment.
No, I could just have one additional comment. It's new development, most likely younger families moving in, And so we haven't talked about the school buses are going to be going down the private streets and pick up at that entrance.
Yeah.
Is there any discussion regarding some kind of waiting area for the kids to get on the bus? Kind of like, again, it's a private road. It is part of our regs for subdivisions to provide some kind of area, waiting area for either the bus shelter or pull off or anything like that. It doesn't seem like it was addressed or shown anywhere in there. And again, it's a private road, so I don't know if that's something that we could discuss. It was as desired by the commission if you wanted to, but again, it falls under the private road.
It's at the commission's discretion. There's nothing in the regs that requires it for a private road in this instance. However, if you believe that the safety of children requires it, you can make it, again, conditional approval. We'll pick it up from there. Again, it's only 6 lots, but it is, it's 850-foot cul-de-sac rather. So, again, the buses will not go up there. Everybody has to be picked up at the end.
It was just a comment.
No,
Yeah, I personally, if you want to talk about it, personally for me, I think it's maybe possibly a good selling point for you to consider as a selling point, but I don't view it as a, if we have them, it's not a, it's a good comment. Seems like something they could maybe take it as a selling point for the lot that they move forward.
We could certainly put, include some green space. So we do show for the proposed sign right at the entrance there, perhaps putting some benches or something like that. It's something we could certainly incorporate that into
Something to do that passage like that. No, but we've had conversations with applicants as agreed to do things. It's not like we're requiring anything.
We certainly want to make something very desirable, something very attractive. So I don't see an issue with putting a nice bench or something there.
Hey, it's Trish. What do you want to talk?
Absolutely. I mean, you guys, I personally think it's something you guys consider part of your selling of these lots.
Absolutely.
Can I
Okay,
talk?
Trish, did you have something?
Yeah, I think, like Rob, great catch. When I see the kids, waiting on the streets, because, the little ones kind of get picked up, at least on the town roads. The little ones get picked up in their by their driveways, whatever. The older ones kind of congregate and wait at the end of the street. But these streets around here where I live, over on Gale Drive, they're very wide. But, I think it's a great point. If we're going to have a more narrow. And so it's like the kids wait in the street. It's safe, but it's not safe. But the streets are super wide. So I think it's a great point that if we're going to have a more narrow street, to have an area a little bit more dedicated. Great point, Rob.
Okay. Anything else, Trish?
Not right now.
Okay, so at this point, we're going to open it up to the public. So again, raise your hand, come up, state your name and address, make your comment. Do you guys mind maybe should we take some of the Zoom folks?
Well, I was going to say, because we can see the map, do we want to go?
Okay, yeah, no, that's a good point. So, yeah, those online, we're going to just let the folks seated here go because they can see the maps and maybe they can maybe even answer a question you may have. So, makes sense.
If you want to come forward so we're closer to the microphone here, that'd be better.
Tom Smith, 79 Old Post Road. I have a couple of concerns. I just like to not correct anybody. The fire hydrant is at least 1,000 feet down the road. And it's not 600 feet. Just for the record.
Yep.
And I think we do have to check the circle for the fire truck. The fire truck do have to come up that road. if there's a fire. They won't stay on Old Post Road. We got 5-inch hose out. I'm not speaking for the fire department, but I've been a fireman 50, 60 years. And we have 5-inch hose, and I'm not gonna drag the hose up to that hose. One of the big pumper trucks got to go up there. The water trucks can sail over the pumper. But anyway, that's unofficial. I don't want anybody to think that.
It's a good point. We did capture that, as you know, yes, that's a good point.
Well, my main concern is the water going out onto Old Post Road. I own the land across the street. I take the natural runoff, and I'm not taking extra water into my lowland areas. Most of the time, wet enough. So there's gotta be, I don't know, Ryan, can I ask him a question?
Through the chair, you're allowed to ask.
Ask me the question. Ask me the question.
The catch basin, where's that catch basin going where your road comes out, where the road comes out?
Yeah, so
You
we'll,
said there was gonna be a basin.
yeah, why don't we, I think it's just probably timing.
So when we said basin, it's not just the catch basin, it's the actual detention basin itself. So that area in the open space here, this is shown here, that's an actual detention basin. That is gonna collect the runoff from the property as it comes down. And the road is this to push the water into that basin, as well as the additional water from coming south on Old Post, on the side of the shoulder, will come into that basin. That basin is inside to handle up to the 100-year storm event water, and we still are reducing the total amount of water going out on Old Post by using four or 4 times of that. So we are reducing the amount of water before 4 times so 0.4 CFS because the second reduction during the 100-year storm event, and the basin size store up to the 100-year storm without going on with it. Percolation tests is done throughout the site. Support that this will be able to percolate that water over a short period of time. They be relatively shallow when you feet. And so, once again, all the requirements have been met for the environmental runoff, and no additional water to be used in the site and free. The other thing is based on the crown of the road or the minor crown of the road, it shouldn't be sheet flowing off unless you had some huge surge of water coming down the road, but since the basin capture and all that, what would be slowly flowing out after the 100-year storm will be coming down Old Post Road, so it wouldn't be going across the street.
That's correct. I understand that, but the detention pond is on the upside of the road. That's it. I know the land very well, but I'm a farmer. So I don't understand how when the driveway comes down and the pond is here, how that water coming off of the road is gonna go into the pond. I mean, I'm not an engineer, but I've been through this before.
So the cross pitch of the road, if the road not found, like typically we found the road, so that the water stays in the water. The road cross pitch, that all of the water basically, even though the Old Post Road runs north-south elevation, this road is actually pitching from the south back to the north to let that water into that region. And left so with the exception of like the last 5 feet of road there, or the 8 feet of road there, you've done everything you can to move that water and force it all into the pond. What is not going into the pond, the total calculated volume of water that's not going into the pond is actually less water than what was coming off of the site previously, because, as you know, there were the driveways, there was a house, there were a lot of these impervious structures on that were contributing to the water flowing off the site path.
We don't,
About right here is where you fit, right? So that's the high point, roughly, the high point, correct. And actually, so yeah, with development, you had more water going.
no, you didn't. No.
Now we can pitch.
Yeah.
As I was saying before,
Hang on.
right now, the way they have.
Which slide do you want?
As a result of it, it's less than when
C2.
before the development.
No, that's not correct.
Is that what you said?
That is not correct.
Okay.
So I mean,
Let me see if I can make it bigger. Is that going to help here? Hang on. Here is in bigger size.
Eric, do you mind if I use the screen?
Go ahead.
So these existing shop points here are the points that when the survey crew went out, they located, they figured out the exact elevation work. So what we did was we tried to do our best to mimic the existing drainage pattern. So while this looks relatively flat all up in here, there is ever so slightly 200 or 210, 310, 610 going, pushes the water back that direction. The rest of this water all came through Old Post. So what we did was we kept that high point in roughly the same place, and we have angled all these contours, and you can see them come across the road on an angle that will direct the water into this basin. And so the water that is flowing off of this hill all ends up in the basin before it can go into Old Post Road. So what we do from an engineering perspective when we look at this is calculate what the total volume of water and the total runoff is going to be, leaving the site in an existing condition case, and then we calculate what the total runoff of water is going to be from our proposed case. In doing that, like I said, what we have found is that, and then obviously we add in retention measures and structures and things of that nature in order to hold back that water on our property for a period of time as long as we need to basically offset the peak storm. So that you're not going to have during a huge rainfall event, all this water flowing directly off, impervious surface, pavement, algae, roots, adds to the amount of runoff and the volume of feed that feeds the site. And so by creating a detention basin, we're storing up to 100-year storing volume of water so that it can't just flow directly off the site. So with the exception of basically from where we see that 272 contour right at the road, that right there, that water can't directly go into the basement. It's going to kind of have to flow around and back and back. It's going to end up in Old Post Road in that grass area to the north, and then into Old Post Road. But that amount of water, that volume of water, is much less water than would come off of the site too.
Before, you say there's less water coming off. There was no paved driveway there, there was no, it was all grass where it was taking some of the water. So you're telling me that the height, are you gonna cut the bank down in front of that a lot?
Correct. No, tested.
Wait a minute, no, I mean, you're gonna lower the grade of it.
Right.
No. And how's that gonna affect the neighbor with the grade of the land? With the neighbor with the grade of the land, in other words, you're gonna come down and make the, you're gonna cut that back? I don't know.
Yeah. So we're going to cut
So
back.
the detention pond's gonna be a road level?
Yeah.
Really? I'm still concerned about the water. Down the road, it overflows across. Into my property, and I don't want that water running into my property. That's one thing I'm concerned about. And we have an icy condition there, not just with the neighbor up the street, but with the neighbor down the street. And I got a couple of grandkids that are driving, and I'm concerned about the icy condition.
I think that Victor addressed that as well with the outlook.
I talked with them.
Yeah.
I talked to Terry in the role.
Yeah.
We know there's a problem. And I don't want the town to be responsible. But I don't want the town to be responsible for a number of dollars after this thing gets through.
Yeah.
I remember years ago, the regulation that they had to put drainage on the town road in order to take care of the water problem. And I don't think that's a regulation.
Sure, please correct me if I'm wrong, but you said that's now considered a small site improvement as well?
Yep.
In cross support and
Yeah.
that.
It's a green,
So that's been addressed by Victor, right?
Victor is satisfied with the detention basin as it now stands. There is some discussion about what needs to happen on the street there. That is, again, still being discussed between Victor and the applicant. But again, we're looking at just the amount of drainage at the edge of the property there, which is a relatively small amount.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Anyone else? And just your name and address, please. Appreciate that.
Marcia Scapa, 112 Old Oak Road. One of the biggest issues, I am at the top there, the front lot. I had talked with Mr. Mechanical about the pine trees. I was just, share that thing. And just, right, we need to, a lot of water. I don't know, hopefully, the second time will help resolve all of it. Especially in that area. He told me in 1997 it was green.
Thank you.
You have people waiting in the queue until,
I'm on here.
Okay.
I'd like to speak.
We're trying to take everybody in the audience first, and then we will get to the Zoom.
I definitely appreciate the people waiting. I told them earlier, we're gonna let the folks in the room go first. Because a lot of these, since you guys have more visibility, maybe you can answer some of the questions that folks have online.
just a quick question. My name is John Kaplan, 86 Old Post Road. I'm a homeowner. Is there a plan to put a
Just,
permanent?
if you could, I'm sorry, I got a little bit, you really have to direct.
Sure, yeah,
questions
sorry about
to
that.
the commission at this point.
Is there a plan to put a permanent sign announcing Sunset Acres on the corner of of this private road in Old Post? Is there gonna be a sign?
I heard there was.
Okay. Is that gonna be permanent or is that gonna be
Talk to
permanent?
the chair, and then when you finish.
Temporary? And if it is permanent, does that meet code?
Yeah, it will certainly make sure it meets code. There's gonna be there is gonna be a sign.
There will be a permanent sign, that announces or that represents the, subdivision, and these are the regulations that are yet, they also have in mind, the size requirement, or the size requirement of the sign will be that.
He has not submitted a sign application with this application. When I receive a sign application, I will confirm that it meets the regulations, and he will not be allowed to erect any sign bigger than what the regulations allow.
Generally speaking, is that sign usually on a private road? Is that on the corner of the public road and the private road?
It has to be on his own property. He can't put anything in the town right of way. It has to be on his own property.
Gotcha, okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Debbie Stone, 17 Old Post Road, across the street. And this is actually a question for the commission because I don't know the answer to it. So we talked about HOA and HOA fees, and it's built in, and I believe that the contracts are all what they're supposed to be, but people sometimes don't pay. Right, we know what's happened. And so my question is really, like, what happens if they stop paying their HOA fees? I mean, they own the houses, they own the land, they're paying those. I know you can't foreclose to just HOA fees. Well, I don't know what happens. I don't know if you know what happens, but that's my question.
We're getting a little beyond the scope of what the commission's authority is. That said, having been a lawyer doing this sort of thing for about 20 years, I will say the town can go after the association. Beyond that, it's going to basically be for the homeowners themselves to sue each other to get these monies paid. The town's avenue is to go after the association and make the association take care of it. I will tell you, as the zoning enforcement officer on this, I don't relish the possibility of having to sue a homeowner association to make it happen. But if it's that or it's on the town's dime, then we're gonna sue the association and make that money appear.
So then in our litigious society that takes, 6 years to do anything, who then is responsible for the maintenance of the road? Because they're not, if one sues the other, we know what's gonna happen, there's only 6 houses, right? So if one sues the other and that all goes awry, who's maintaining the basin, who's maintaining the, open space and mowing it? The town ends up responsible for that?
No, I mean, it will never, ever be the town's responsibility because the town will never, ever own it.
Then we'll have to file a blight application if there's water over the road and.
We don't have blight ordinance.
I know, we went through that, I've been there all the time.
That said, if they are putting water into the road that turns out to be a nuisance of some sort,
Yeah.
then that does violate the terms of their subdivision and of the zoning regulations, and they can add into whatever litigation the town chooses to bring against them. The difficulty, as you know, is that litigation takes a while and it's not easy to force
Yeah,
through.
so my question is, in the meantime, what happens to that water? What happens to that overflow? What happens? Because I mean, my dad owns the one part of the property, but I live across the street. So it just goes and goes until,
Well,
I'm not saying this is gonna happen. He
No,
built a very nice, he didn't mention about to buy a house. But,
Here, all I can tell you is this. From a legal standpoint, we are not allowed to predicate approval on potential future failure.
sure.
So all we can do is set the pieces up in a way that will maximize our chance of getting it right, and then hope for the best.
Right. I was just wondering what happens if they don't pay the HOA fees, because I know you talked about, putting extra money in and making sure that, I'm sure those contracts are solid. I was just wondering what happens when people don't pay. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, just come up, please, and name and address. Appreciate that. Thank you. A very good evening to the members of the board. Come and speak. I first would like to say it's great to see some of these. My name, I am sorry, it's Randolph Lindsley Simpson. I'm at 300 Old Post Road, Northford, Connecticut. Delighted to see some lifetime members of this community and people that have spent their life on Old Post Road, as my family has since 1790. I'm the lucky recipient of so many decisions made by this commission. I'm the last house on Old Post Road. Has anybody ever tried to come up Route 22 at 5 o'clock in the evening and then go north on 17? Poor planning, poor site allowed a nightmare to develop in the center of town. And it is a nightmare. People have discovered that, hey, you know what? I'm not getting down there and trying to sit there and take a left on 17 to go north. I'll shoot up Pistapog Road and shoot up Old Post Road so that when I try and arrive, geez, I got 14 cars stacked up waiting to pull out. Less than what you would find in the center of town. I try and go out to the mailbox right off of 17. The state blew that intersection wide open. Not a tap on the brake. You see a bus coming down, anything that might slow their progress at 65, 68 miles an hour going down 17. Let me just shoot off on the Old Post. They've stuck stop signs in there, of course, right by the former police chief's home. Try and slow them down a little bit. And then again, right near this development. Where does it stop? I go out and I have to jump back and you go like this and the guy gives me, you know what he gives me. So one points down the window and go perform a sex act on your mother and goes on. It's intolerable. The commission allowed part of Northford, it's that iconic barn. What defines Northford? We always say, oh, I drive up, it's so beautiful. You come up by that red barn, it's gone forever. They allowed that development to take place. And of course, the driveway comes sloping right up. How convenient. I can't watch TV. I can't go to bed at night without
high-intensity discharge lights just flashing through. Every shade in my house has to be pulled down. And the traffic experts, we only stage 4C from these homes, maybe 70 trips a day. Oh my goodness, 570. You pay a salesman that calls himself a traffic expert enough, and he'll give you whatever you want. Reality is they all know too, those people shoot up Old Post Road and boom, right across there. You can hear them as they hit the gas so they can cross 17 without getting clipped either way. The bikers out in the summertime, open pipes, hey, they're having a good time, God bless them. At 1 o'clock in the morning, 6 of them come up there to the end, and of course, they love to hear themselves talking about, and there I am right there, and I got to hear them talking about, well, you want to go hit the tavern up there in Durham? Okay, let's go. And they just nail it with everything they got. It's nonstop, it's 24/7. Has anybody talked about what the residents have to put up with on our road? Has there been any traffic study yet? 6 homes. Oh, we expect maybe 12 trips. It's going to be 60, 70. The kids that live with their parents across that new development, the loud pipes, the cars, the boom boxes. And I got to put up with it all. Right there. What are we going to do to stop this? I mean, where's it going to be? This is a local road. There used to be 5 homes on it. If I come home Old Post Road now, I drive the speed limit of 25, and you know what? I got 7, 8, 9 cars stacked up behind me, right up on my rear bumper. Again, I don't have anything about the development. It's got to be planned, and there's got to be something done. I call the police, and I call the police, and I call the police station. Finally, they come out there with that speed marker. The number of trips, it blew me away. In 3 days, there were 25,000 trips on that road. It was unbelievable numbers. I brought it forth to the commission once before when they were approving that bad development that we worked so hard to try and preserve that land as open space and preserve some of the identity of this town. But it's in your hands. Your decisions affect me. Not by one car going by, not one driveway that was badly placed where that one person leaves. I got everybody coming from across the street, even the local police will sit there. It's a favorite spot. And they'll sit there right there. If that grade comes up, lights on for hours on end with those lights shining up. I'm just telling you what we have to put up with as residents, long-term residents that have been paying our taxes and have been part of this town. Tom, as he said before, a fireman, for as long as I have known Tom Smith, going back to the 50s, he has given to this town. And this man deserves, again, his concerns about water. I know that section. We all know it. We live on that road. These are our homes. It's been our homes forever. And we watch these decisions being made and our quality of life continue just to go down, down, down. I hate to say it, but after 230 years, I'm having a hard time justifying living here in the town that I love, where my blood came from, where everyone for 230 years is buried in these cemeteries here. And it might be time to call it quits. It's lost its identity. But it is the vision and the guts of a planning board, the foresight, that will make all the difference. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else in the audience? Okay, so we have some folks online. If you want to raise hands or just, is there someone online that would like to speak?
Yes, I would. This is Cliff Potter, Northford.
Okay, Cliff, why don't you go ahead?
Well, let's just have a point at water. 2 nights ago, town council, not one single person was allowed in town hall to have the town council meeting. So I'm misinformed because I thought that because of COVID, this was all Zoom. And now I understand that you've got people there, you're there. How are you exempt and town council isn't? I don't understand the procedure. I suggest that you're going to meet again in 2 weeks.
So, okay,
We'd like to be there if we could, but we were told that the town hall is closed. You can't come to town council. Town council can't come in. Nobody can come in. And all of a sudden you're all there tonight. So I don't understand why the double standard. And why can't we come back in 2 weeks and everybody have the same chance to see everything?
Cliff, we're gonna have the town planner address that.
Hi, this is Eric Knapp, responding to your concerns. Because the notice was put in the newspaper that we were having the public hearing in person here tonight, we were obligated to have the meeting where people would be allowed to attend in person. However, I have been informed by the town manager that all future meetings from here on out need to be on Zoom. So in 2 weeks, rather than everybody being here, we're all going to be remote. So this is about the last meeting that anyone is having in town in person. And the only reason we are obligated to have it here in person is because I put a notice in the newspaper saying it would be here in person. Otherwise, this would not be going forward in person tonight. This would be happening on Zoom only.
Well, like we missed an opportunity because, it's a double standard. Again, this town I understand what you're saying, but at the same point, I feel you should continue the public hearing 2 weeks because there's so much. All I've seen all night is the top of your head. I can't see anything else, and your nice blue mask and your glasses. We have not been able to see anything else. The audio's been kind of iffy. There's so many things that are being brought up that you're kind of fluffing off. Like, what is the fire department? You just can't assume they're going to be happy because you're already telling them it's going to be a private road.
Cliff, we've already addressed that, and we've gotten that as an action for our deliberation. Once we even close the public hearing, we have that captured. The fire department comments and the police department comments. We're not fluffing anything off. So, you have the application?
Yes, I agree with Tommy Smith. There's water constantly running across Old Post Road, going towards Durham from the left side to the right side. That's going to always be there. And I think it's a big enough issue that it's got to be looked at more seriously. And again, we just, it just needs to be, I think there's too many things that need to be discussed. You're one of the few places in town that's not a private road. And again, that puts constraints on it, like the school bus kids. If you ever notice down at 17 and, technically 22, they all have to come out from that development back there and stand in a dangerous place because school buses cannot go down a cul-de-sac and turn around. They're not allowed by the superintendent of the schools. There's so many things that I think still are kind of on the table that are, well, he said, she said it's okay, but you have nothing in writing. So when you come to that point, it's he said, she said. You got to have it in writing.
Yeah,
I think 2 weeks. I think 2 weeks is more than enough time for you to get what you need. Put it off for 2 more weeks, and I mean 2 more weeks is going to make that much of a difference. But I think the questions you're asking will, and the advantages and disadvantages of a privately owned road. How quick are they going to have their plow guy plow the private road? Because if there's a fire call and the road isn't plowed, the fire department can refuse to go down that road. There's so many things about a private road that make it a restriction rather than an asset to have it a private road. That's just my concerns. Only because I see those kids at 17, by the old Norford house. And they have to stand out there in the cold. And it's a heavy traffic area. And there's a lot of accidents in that area. They're always in harm's way. Let's not set up another situation like that. Those are some of my concerns. And the house numbering, I'll tell you, my poor neighbor, my elderly neighbor, I'm on the right, going towards the Haven, I'm on the left side of 17. They're all odd numbers. And somehow my neighbor's number got reversed, and I'm not sure if you guys had to, for the new houses being built in the old logger field next to me, had to waive 1254 because his number has been swapped. And when they have an ambulance call, which they just had the other night again at his house, they couldn't find it because it was mismatched numbers. So again, the fire department's got to get direction. How do you want these numbered? Even on the right, even on the left? And it's just enough stuff that's not in writing. It'll fall through the cracks. And
So,
I just see it happen all the
Cliff,
time.
you heard that the town planner, that's one of his many hats. He's going to keep it very simple, but he's actually going to reach out both to the fire and police department to coordinate with them, to make sure there's no confusion with the numbering scheme he comes up with. But it'll be a very simple numbering scheme.
Yes, but again, it should be in writing. It's an issue that was brought up, how you're going to deal with it, and get a set pattern.
It's up to the town planner to make those decisions on numbering, not the applicant.
Understood. That's just some of my concerns. And again, I was surprised to see that, there were people in the room. Because I was all set to go to the town meeting the other night, and they put out a blurb, it's not going to be any public in the building. Nobody. So I guess, now that you told me why, I have to accept it. But I just feel like it's a double standard sometimes. You could have put a blurb on the website because the COVID can override everything. You know that.
Yes, there are things we would have to adhere to the rules and the legality of it.
We've established the reasoning. I mean, it's an unfortunate situation. We posted it. We have to have it. I mean, so I suggest we move on from that. Next week will be Zoom. There's really nothing we could have done.
Okay, I mean, you've given me a reason. I don't have to like it, but you have given me a reason.
Anything else, Cliff?
No, I'm just hoping that we can iron out some of the school bus issues, the fire department issues. I think you need firm verbiage and input because it's not just going to be a town road, it's going to be a private road. And that opens it all up to all sorts of little things like the width, fire truck width. Can a school bus pull in and back out? No, I mean, just enough safety concerns that aren't normal on a normal town road.
Yeah, I agree 100%. We have
okay.
I appreciate the comments, though. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry, but I just didn't know we could be there. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Cliff. Appreciate it. Okay, next person online, Barbara. Do you want? I'm kind of going down the list here, so.
She's your attorney. She's here for a different matter.
Oh. Jeffrey McMillan. Anyone else? Anyone online would like to go? I'll pause just so you can come off mute. And if you want, just speak up. Give me your name and address. Anyone online? And if you're, make sure you're off mute. Anyone in the audience for their comments? Do you have anything more to add?
I don't believe we really have any more to add. I think with addressing or going back to your common questions and concerns, it is certainly not our goal or our act to try to create a bad situation for somebody else. As I've said, we went through the regulations. The regulations say this is what you need to do. You need to meet gyro, no increase in runoff water, no increase. I understand there may be icing conditions, I mean, to be honest, we're aware that of the one pipe that comes out and flows down the road. If there's drainage issues down the street somewhere, I mean, if they're existing now, we're reducing the amount of runoff. So we should be reducing them. Whether it's going to fix those problems, probably not. They're probably from another source. But we've done everything in our power to make sure that the water leaving this site isn't going to impact neighboring properties. And that's what the reports show. That's what Victor reviewed. That's what Victor and I reviewed in the first set of revisions. That's why we made changes to the plan, increased the size of the basins, did all these different things. And as I've said, I have not received any additional comments, questions, concerns, correspondence from Victor stating that, he wants something additional. As far as the school bus issue, I take to heart what the commission members have said and the neighbors. I personally agree. I think it would be great. I'm thinking we'll put a small, place. Originally I said bench, and then you had mentioned maybe making it some sort of a impervious surface right at the edge there so that you can shovel it, plow it, people can actually use it. I think that's very reasonable. I like the concept. We're more than willing to add additional street trees. We're more than willing to do and make changes that the fire and police feel will improve the safety of the subdivision as a whole. So to that end, I don't really have much more, and I don't know that if there were any additional questions that kind of came up, if I missed anything, I'd certainly be happy to try to address them now.
Questions from the commission?
I have a question. Again, more to learn. I don't think I've been really part of any. I think I've been part of subdivisions, but not. But yeah, some kind of road. Why is it an HOA versus not? Or like, why is it a private road and not a town road?
So we had designed it as a private road based on, because this is obviously, we've been working on this project for quite some time. We had a different plan that obviously came before this commission. But in all the conversations I had with the previous planners, from when I had these conversations with Carrie, the understanding from our end was that the town didn't want to be responsible for any additional infrastructure. They didn't want to be responsible for any additional maintenance of roads, additional detention basins, stuff like that. What happens, generally speaking, and this is, I'm not sure if this happens in North Branford. I don't do a ton of work in North Branford, but in a lot of the other towns in which we do work, maintenance generally tends to fall through the cracks, and not from the developers or the private, and it's the town. There's just not enough funds, there's not enough resources to go out and mow every single detention basin in town constantly and do all that maintenance, and so it tends to slip through the cracks. And when that happens, they just don't work as well, they become unsightly, neighbors all complain, and then it's the town's responsibility. So the understanding was that the town really didn't want anything additional. The other consideration was the road itself. Town road, you have a 50-foot right-of-way, you have 30 feet of pavement. The general understanding and the things that I heard from the public were they wanted this to kind of remain as natural as possible. That's why we pushed all the houses as far back on this lot as we could, so that from the road, you really can't see the houses. You see this smaller driveway, you see this open space, you see grass, and you don't see, houses stacked all on top of each other. So that was really the reasons why we pushed ahead in this kind of design fashion.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Ron, you had a question.
My understanding, well, I mean, it's outside the scope of this particular subdivision. I can tell you that he is looking at putting in some sort of piping along this street to carry the water from here to another location. That said, I don't know when that would come to pass. I don't want to speak on his behalf as to what that will mean. I do know in talking to Victor that he and Fran have been talking about drainage on this road and what to do about it, aware of the existing condition on that road. But we can't, this subdivision could only be required to address the water from this subdivision. So whatever the additional water on this road is, as the testimony has been tonight, it's pre-existing.
Our role is to ensure that doesn't happen, doesn't make it worse than first through testimony to Victor's review that it actually is going to make it less from the site, the existing conditions. I do that. Training.
You know, again, I can say it is being looked at, but when that will come to fruition, I wouldn't want to promise you that that's something that's beyond my knowledge, honestly.
So you said it, I just want to, for the record, clarify for me. So, because I have it here as an open, I wrote it down as the drainage. So you're saying that you have no purview, that's not in our scope. Is that correct?
We cannot impose requirements beyond what is coming off of the site at present. So to the extent that no more water is coming off the site, you do not have the power to impose off-site conditions beyond what the existing conditions are, okay? So that's really where we are. We're at a point in time where if no more water is leaving the site, we're not allowed to impose additional infrastructure requirements off-site. That is no longer allowed by Connecticut state law.
Ron, do you have another question? So I have more of a clarification from both of you. I'm still unclear. So all the comments back and forth, you've addressed them. You have a plan, but you haven't seen the plan. Is that correct?
This is what is on screen is the most recent plan that has been submitted. To the extent that there have been discussions about additional street trees or additional whatever, nothing has been submitted. If you want to leave the hearing open for 2 more weeks so that the applicant can come back with revised plans and you can get comments from the fire department, police department, you certainly can do that. You are seeing the most recent document we have, and it does not reflect some of what has happened this evening.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean this evening. I meant just Victor was back and forth, and you said you addressed it. Has Victor seen the revised set of plans to say, okay, I verify that these changes have been made, and now I agree this is the final. Again, we're used to seeing. I'm used to seeing a holistic application with everything, all the comments received, everything that's been discussed, revised, and approved again by staff, and then it comes to us, and we get everything has been done and everything's checked, and then we have me personally have a more comfortable feeling about.
I'm on the same page as you, Bill. Not just you, I'm on the same page.
Open things that it's just unusual. I don't think it's what we normally see.
That's fine. And again, what I can do is get a final memo from Victor indicating he has reviewed whatever the final version is, and it's okay. It's going to be a clean memo saying he's good to go. Okay?
And then fire, police, and then trees and things that we've talked about.
Well, and from my understanding from tonight is there is still some discussion between Victor and the applicant about, what happens if there's overflow. So I agree with Bill, and seeing as that's a huge concern of the residents, like we kind of need a final, what is happening with this concern if it overflows? Like we kind of need to hear that from Victor and the plan and see it on the plan.
Okay. I will talk, again, Victor's been out this week with COVID. I will talk to him about getting something from him that is a final memo regarding where things stand today.
So the next question for the commission is, do we keep the public hearing open? We certainly have these items that we've discussed that we want to see. Do we keep the public hearing open?
I don't think it's necessary because it's my opinion.
Chris, do you have an opinion?
I was on the fence and going to defer to you guys. I mean, and my initial reaction is, we can close it. We know there's a significant concern with the water. And then the other part of me is like, do we want to leave it open one more time to, because I know when we were doing remote, when the pandemic first hit, you could see the plans on the screen. So if we want to leave it open one more time for that. And then I go back to, I think we're still going to hear the same concerns about the water. So do we really need to keep it open? So I kind of I can go either way based on, the majority.
Wow. Yeah, definitely that.
I want to see the two, see the final product from the engineer. This is what we can do. And things kind of ways that we can do that.
And you can receive staff reports beyond the close of the public hearing. So if you're waiting for police, fire, engineering, that can all come in post-close of public hearing. What you're not going to get, though, is a revised set of plans from the applicant because the hearing will have been closed at that point. Okay, so that's the issue is, are you expecting to see a revised set of plans from the applicant at this point? If not, then you can close the hearing.
I personally feel we should keep the public hearing.
Yeah, if it's the condition of seeing revised plans, then yeah, we would keep it open.
What you're saying. Again, I think it's obviously the reputable person. There's no, I'm sure he'll come in and it will be satisfactory, but to your point of what we've been saying all night, we want to see holistically everything and then we move forward. So for me, I'd like to see.
I agree.
Get all the comments, get all the, everything, have a whole package in front of us. When we're making our decision, we're making it on a whole complete package.
Do you know what the most recent set of plans that we reviewed on this?
Well, let's take a look. December 1st, 2021 is the most recent date of submission here. So this is.
So the set of plans that's dated December 1st, that's that set of plans. That's the most recent set of plans.
Okay, but again, Victor's memo is dated December 22nd. So if there's anything additional you would like to put on the plan beyond that, then at this point, again, I would certainly go back and include the street trees we talked about, things of that sort.
Yeah.
You may want to just, again, touch base with Victor and make sure that if there's anything he thinks is not on the plans you want to put on the plans, get that sorted out.
Yeah, I would really
Okay.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Not to make, not making needless work. I mean, I think it's important work.
No, I mean, regardless, if it's something that we're discussing that's going to end up being a condition, the plan's going to get updated anyway. So we're more than happy to update the plan.
If you want to show a bench or impervious or whatever else is going to be on there, all the notes from this evening that can be addressed should be addressed.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it just goes back to making the decision on a complete full package that we can see visually and feel comfortable in making it.
And not only to that point, also the perspective of, we really try to remain conscientious about setting precedent. We don't want to start this habit as a commission, at least I don't, based on how well I know the rest of you. We don't want to start a habit of, not making decisions, not having a complete application, because at what point do you stop? Whereas, rules are rules. You have to have a complete application and then we make a decision. That's a little bit easier to deal with than all of a sudden now we're slicing and dicing applications. At what point is it okay and is it not? So, it's not you, Brian, it's also, and it's not this application, it's also, the future and decisions we have to make down the road.
Absolutely, and it's perfectly acceptable.
Okay, so. Too late.
The actual private road, is it owned by the association or is it something in the law?
Originally, it was going to be part of Lot 4, and I said no. It has to be part of the association. I did not want it as part of Lot 4 because if Lot 4 ever got foreclosed for some reason, then the road would be foreclosed. And I said we didn't want that. So the private road has to be association owned and controlled so that that doesn't happen.
All right, so we are going to continue the public hearing. So we need a motion to continue the public hearing to the next meeting, which is
20th.
20.
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Trish? Trish, did you vote?
Yeah.
Yes, sorry, I couldn't get my finger off mute quick enough or on
We're going
it.
to continue this to the next meeting on the 20th.
And again, that
It
meeting
will be a Zoom
will be a
meeting.
Zoom
only,
meeting. I will have Zoom details.
Unless
when we
COVID
set.
goes away in the next week or so.
You can only hope that, you can only
So
hope.
we'll see you on Zoom for the next
It won't
few.
be said, but, yeah. It'll be said next day.
All right.
Can I, who seconded that, and are you leaving?
So the kid, like,
Okay.
So Ron, you second.
It was
Ron,
Trish and Ron.
Did you second?
I'm sorry, what?
Ron Sienna second. Second.
Ron Sienna seconded the motion.
All right, and that's to keep the public hearing open?
Keep the public hearing open until January 20th, 6:30 p.m. on Zoom.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
So we gotta continue.
Okay. Next matter is new business DA 24 referral. I have received word from Anthony that he has not gotten the materials he needed. That needs to be tabled for the next meeting.
So that we can,
Number 4A needs to be tabled or continued to the next meeting.
continue. Someone want to make a motion to continue 4A?
So moved.
So moved. And second?
Why don't we just get out there as continue to the next meeting here? That way, there's no question that somehow.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Continue that to the next meeting, okay? Go ahead.
5A, again, as you've heard repeatedly this evening, Victor has COVID. Fran could not be here because he has storm preparations that he's working on. Therefore, they have asked that that matter also be tabled to the next meeting again.
We have a motion to table application 21-13 to the next meeting.
So moved.
Ron Beaches, Trish.
Oh, darn, I was trying to beat somebody there.
Second. You missed the second too. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Table or continue that or table it to the next meeting.
Okay. That was the police station. That was, and it was Ron and Bob just for the minutes on that. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Which brings us down to the first bullet hole, which is the new application 641, 645 Forest Road. That is a new subdivision application. You need to set it down for a public hearing on the 20th of January. It's going to again be a Zoom meeting. So if you go down to 7, again, the first bullet there, 641, 645 Forest Road. The applicant asked if we needed to be here this evening. I indicated that we were just going to get down for public hearing, so that's where we are on that.
Okay. The first,
20th actually.
yeah.
Okay, because the date is wrong on the agenda, but the public hearing, if you make the motion correctly, will be the 20th.
We have to make a motion to that? Okay.
Receive it and set it down for public hearing. I would, if I could get a motion for that, that'd be better. I
I
think.
have a motion to receive and set a public hearing for application for the subdivision of 641 and 645 Forest Road.
So moved.
Mace makes the motion, Nowak seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes 4-0.
Okay, that brings us to my report here on the town council. This is a motion that the town council has made to opt out of the parking spaces and for dwelling units and accessory apartments. There's nothing you guys need to do with that. They just wanted me to report back to you that they've taken the formal step to opt out of that. As you may recall, the statute requires both your action and their action. You previously acted, they've now acted as well. And so I think you're pretty much good to go with that. Okay, at this point, the only people remaining on the meeting are Trish and Barbara Schellenberg. So I'm going to, well, Janet, we're going to have a motion to go into executive session. And you're going to invite in myself, Barbara Schellenberg, and you can, Janet, or not Janet, that's up to you. And I will turn off the tape, the pause recording, so that can happen once you go into executive session. So if you can.
Okay, do I have a motion to go into executive session and invite in Eric Knapp and Barbara Schellenberg?
So moved.
Okay, that's going to be at 8:17.
At 8:17. There's
And
a motion made by Sienna, second by Novak. Sorry.
How do we get the other people off Zoom?
Huh?
How do we get the other people off Zoom?
We just leave.
Yeah, everybody else has to leave off Zoom at this point in time. So
You'll just have to mark what time you adjourn on the minutes.
I will do that as well. Okay.
All right, good night.
Right.
Good night.
So Cliff Potter, Brian, Marcia, you guys have to leave. Brian, you got to log out if he's still there.
Okay, I'm going to, if necessary, remove him.
Oh,
Okay.
good. Hold on. I'm assuming we got to remove Totucket TV too.